Should police break up a real-life fight club right here in the Valley? We brought you the story last night at 10. Residents near 30th Street and Greenway say teens are gathering and going toe-to-toe in the middle of a park. Police say they're not breaking them up because it's perfectly legal. Neighbors fear the violence could escalate.
It's just the residents using the park. There's nothing illicit about that.
Are we going to have a riot in our neighborhood? I mean, what's next? If we're going to allow this to happen, what's next?
Neighbors say this fight club has been going on every Wednesday night for the past few weeks. Now at 9, what do you think should be done, or do you think there's really no way to stop this? And how would you feel if this was going on in your neighborhood?
What a controversial situation.
Yeah.
A lot of people in that neighborhood dealing with probably something they didn't think they'd have to deal with.
Right, and there's a Boys and Girls Club right next to where this park is, and you can see in our Air 15 video, like the cops are kind of planted here, the fight's here, the Boys Club's here. There's concern for good reason, according to these parents.
Yeah, but you know, like the police officer mentioned, what can they do? They're saying it's perfectly legal. Yeah, you may not like it. I know I wouldn't want it in my neighborhood for sure, but what can you do? They're both willing participants.
Yeah, and they're young kids.
And let's get right to what you are saying again. Imagine this was in your neighborhood.
I know. Valerie Stewart says they are not doing anything illegal. Let them fight. They are performing it as a sport. At least they're not fighting to hurt one another.
And Cookie Colvert writes, I think teenagers these days are out of control. If I had pulled this when I was a teen, there would have been serious consequences.
Jose Torrado asks, where are the parents? Where are the school officials? Where is the law enforcement? Hello.
Crystal White says they are gloved. This is a low-income neighborhood, so maybe it's harmless or not, but why are the cops just watching from afar?
That's a tough one. I mean, connecting, you know, low-income neighborhoods with fight clubs, it happens all the time. I remember when I was younger in high school, fight clubs happened and kids met up at, you know, whatever corner store to duke it out.
Yeah.
But the concern here is, what if these escalate? What if they escalate into something much more? What if a kid falls on that cement sidewalk there and busts his head open and then he has a brain injury or worse? That is where I think the neighborhood really wants police to kind of step in and start, you know, stopping these before something happens.
But at the end of the day, you heard the police officer, they're not breaking the law.
Right. They're not. They can use the
well,
park.
It's all fine and good until something bad happens.
Until someone gets hurt. Leslie Maldonado has an interesting perspective. She writes on Facebook, the kids boxing is better than them gangbanging. They could have been playing tackle football. Kids get hurt doing that, but they choose to box. Give them a break.
Well, and of course you have boxing and you have things like ultimate fighting now that are just so huge, and they're wanting to be considered ultimate fighting anyway as a legitimate professional sport. So there's argument to be made here that these kids may be training for that. I know we had a couple of comments on our Facebook page alluding to that. Patty Bertoglio says it with a wink, but she says maybe these are tomorrow's cage fighters and they're just in training. So again, like I mentioned, I wouldn't want it happening in my neighborhood, but there's only so much you can do or so much you can't do, and the cops have said we can't do anything about this.
And it's interesting because the cops that we talked to yesterday even said they're quiet. These are not loud, rowdy kids. They're fairly quiet when they're out there. They're having their fights and then they're breaking up and going to their respective communities.
We got to move on, but I want to read a few more of your comments before we do that. Brian Van Ziel says, no, sometimes the only way to solve a problem is to fight. I've done that in the past, and it works.
Well, Ted Sandy goes after the police department, saying the fact that the Phoenix police lieutenant condones this goes to show just how messed up their department truly is. What a PR debacle. Hey, kiddies, let's go to the park to watch big kids fight on the playground while the police officers cheer them on.